Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good to be with you here again today. And today, the subject that I'm going to talk about is slightly different to what we normally talk about. And what I'm going to do is be slightly more relaxed because I'm trying to get through to younger people today. Now, it might surprise you that I'm actually a surfer. Now, not the type of surfer that sits behind a keyboard on a computer and surfs the net, one that actually gets onto a surfboard and goes into the ocean. And I've been surfing since I was in school. So that's many light years ago for some of you. I'm ancient already. And I've been surfing for many years. But one of the interesting things that I've found about surfing is that there's a lot of similarities that you can look at between our walk as Muslims. And so today's topic is surfing the ocean of life. You know, there are many obstacles that we all face with on a day-to-day basis. And as young people and as teenagers and those who are going into the early 20s, there are many obstacles that we are going to face in the future as well. And so hopefully by looking at some of the analogies or the comparisons between what a surfer, a person who goes with his surfboard into the water experiences, and what we can experience in life as normal human beings and especially as Muslims. Now, the surfers, they have their own language. It's almost as if they have a special code. And there's a dictionary that was written just for surfers. No matter where you go in the world, you can go to Bombay, you can go to America, you can go to London, you can go to Australia, you can go to South Africa. And wherever you go, you'll find the surfers speak the same language. It's almost like a universal language that they speak. They have symbols that they use, like certain hand signs that they use, that they know that, I know exactly what that means just by the hand movement. There's a certain way that the surfboards are designed that you can tell what type of surfer it is. Whether it is somebody who is what they call a commercial surfer, or they're a soul surfer, there's all different types of words and analogies and explanations that are used within their community. And you'll find that there are different types of surfers. You have surfers of different nationalities, of different cultures. They have different types of boards. But they all agree on one thing, that they love the ocean. And they love the adrenaline that they get when they go into the water. Now, we have the same thing in Islam. We have many, many different types of cultures within Islam. People who are Chinese, maybe they're Greek, German, African. We have people from all different cultures, and they are part of Islam. And we have our own language in a way as well. And so for those who are not Muslims who are watching this program, welcome, I'm glad you're watching. But one of the things that you can learn is that it's not unique that we have this private, selective, us only and no one else club. Islam is open to everybody, and anyone is welcome to come into a mosque or ask about Islam to any Muslim that they meet. Now, in the surfing community, like I said, they have their own language. And Muslims, sometimes we seem to have our own language as well. You might, when maybe a new Muslim who's just reverted to Islam, if you have, welcome, we're glad to have you in the community. But there are many, many things that you find difficult in the beginning as a new Muslim. And one of them is understanding some of the words that we use. You often hear like Alhamdulillah, Inshallah, Jazakallah, and these are words that Muslims understand. But for a new Muslim or somebody who's outside of Islam, you don't understand what these words mean. Now, the surfing community is the same. We have words that nobody else seems to understand what they mean, and we all think, okay, all these surfers are all blonde and brain dead, and they can't really think for themselves. Maybe there's too much salt water on their brain. But that's not so. They have a language that those people that are in the know understand. And so as Muslims as well, as you become a stronger Muslim and you grow as a Muslim, there's language that you have to evolve and understand. Also, there are certain ways that we dress. Now, the clothing that you see me dressing is not typical of Muslims. Every Muslim can dress the way he wants to. Maybe he wants to wear a suit and a tie, he's welcome to do that. If he wants to wear a turban on his head, he can wear a turban. If he wants to wear a piece of cloth on his head, he can wear a piece of cloth on his head. He's able to do whatever he likes. There's no right and wrong outfit that he's wearing, and no right and wrong head covering that he's wearing. It's up to him to do. Now, in the surfing community, you have the same. Some people wear wetsuits when they swim. Some people wear those three-quarter pants. Some people wear a sweatshirt. Some people wear what they call a rash vest. But there is a dress code that surfers wear. It might differ, but they all generally wear a certain type of clothing. And that just makes them stand out from the rest of the community. So when you see a surfer going to the beach, you can see him. When he gets his surfboard out of the car, before he even gets his surfboard out of the car or takes it out of its wrapping, you can see that this guy is a surfer because of the way he dresses. And so many Muslims when we revert to Islam or we convert to Islam, what happens is many people want to be associated with or be seen as Muslims. So people often say to new reverts like myself who reverted to Islam, people say, why is it that you look more like the Arabs than the Arabs do? Why do you want to look like Arabs? And it's not that we want to look like Arabs. All we are doing is we are going to the Quran and we are emulating what the prophets did. So we look at all the prophets, what they did, and we think, well, we want to be like them. Now, if I had to ask you to take a pen and paper out right now, and you should have a pen and paper when you're ever watching Peace TV, you should have a pen and paper next to you, and you should have the Quran next to you, so you can fill in any information that you hear along the way. It's lazy to just put the recorder on, and it's lazy just to buy the CD. You'll remember it much more if you write it down. So one of the things that we encourage you to do right now is to get a pen and paper and write 2 columns. And on the left and the right of the column, I want you to put Islam and any other religion that you can choose. So what we're going to do today, we will just have a look at, say, for instance, Christianity. And we put Christianity on the one side and we put Islam on the other side. And above it, since we're talking about Christianity, let's put the Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, or Jesus Christ, as a Christian community will know him. And let's look who emulates the Prophet Jesus or the Prophet Isa more, the Muslims or the Christians. When you think of the Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, when you think of Jesus Christ, what do you think of? You see this guy with a long beard. Okay, now take your pen and tick which one of them has beards. Do you have the Christians? No. So the tick would have to obviously go on the Muslim side because we grow beards. We're emulating the prophets. Let's think of the type of clothing he wore. Did he wear a t-shirt and shorts? Or did he wear something similar to what I'm wearing? Again, you would have to put the tick on the appropriate side. Let's have a look at the mannerisms that he had. Did he just go and speak to people without respect, or did he have respect for the people? Again, look at our community, the way we speak to our women, and the way we speak to the elder people, and the respect that we have for those who are sick and in need. Who were the people that Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, Jesus Christ, what was the type of people that he went out to reach? Again, we have a look at the 2 different groups and see who does more work amongst those communities. Now, as you go through, you can ask yourself more and more questions. Just look at the Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, and look at his characteristics and put the tick in the appropriate place. And you'll see at the end of it that we as Muslims are more like the Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, than the Christians are. Yet we don't claim to be followers of one specific prophet. We follow what the Quran tells us, and we look at all the prophets. We accept all the prophets, right from the first prophet to the final prophet. And we emulate them all. So we look at their characteristics. So we're not trying to become more Arab or following the Arabs. We are doing it because this is what we see in the Quran. So we emulate the prophets. Just like I was saying, the surfers, they all have a specific look. They've all got the same blonde hair. Okay, as these days you have surfers with dreadlocks, and you have surfers with short hair, no hair, and black hair. And you even get goth surfers these days. And if you don't know what the word goth is, you will hear it in future episodes. The Gothic community are people who dress in very dark clothing and have black eyeliner and white pale faces. And we even have goth surfers these days. So you have all different types of surfers. Now you have the same thing with Muslims. We get pale faces like me who are white Muslims, and we're very pale skinned. You get people who are dark skinned, very dark skinned. So you get Muslims from all different nationalities as they first get the basics. That is required first. Now, another thing that a person needs to do when you're about to get into the water with your surfboard is you have a look at the currents. You don't just jump in blindly into the water because you'll probably drown yourself. So what he does is someone will stand on the shore and you'll watch the current. You'll see if it's pushing to the left or to the right, if there's a backwash in the ocean or where there is wind. And so he makes an evaluation before just jumping in. Now, when we revert to Islam, especially the reverts, and even some people who have been born into Islam, they get to a point in their life where they have to make a decision. I want to be serious about my life now as a Muslim. And so we have to read the currents. We have to read the tides. We have to look at how the wind is blowing. And so for people who are going to get into Islam, you need to count the cost before. So what we need to do is we need to do research. And we need to find out what it actually entails to be a Muslim. What it entails to be a Muslim is a change of personality, a change of behavior. We need to change from who we were before into who we are now. You know, many times we have people who come into Islam and they have no knowledge of why they have done or why they are doing the things they're doing. And it's very important for us to know why we are connected to Allah, why we are doing the things that we are doing. And so we must read the currents. A friend of mine once reverted to Islam. He was out one night with a friend and they went to a nightclub. And his friend was drunk and his friend was full of drugs and they were womanizing and they were seeing all these people. And when he came out, there was a little store outside and they were selling hot dogs and hamburgers, and his friend went and he wanted to buy a hamburger. But this friend of his that went to buy a hamburger was actually a Muslim. And his friend, as he was going to buy the hamburger, he said to his friend, "That's not halal." And he goes, "Oh, I can't eat this now." But he was drunk and full of drugs and just came out of womanizing. And that day, because somebody said to him, "That is not halal," a realization came to him. He realized, what is the point if I'm not obeying the whole of Islam? And that day he decided to recommit his life as a Muslim. He took the Shahada again. He was born a Muslim and he decided to change his life. And it affected him for the rest of his days. And so, inshallah, we can all be like that. We get to a point where we can reconnect. Now we're going to take a short break, and when we come back from the break, we'll continue to have a look at what we can learn from the person who surfs. We'll see you now. Welcome back, and we continue with our topic of surfers and the ocean of life that we're all in. And another thing that we can learn about surfers is that doesn't matter what school of thought they come from, whether they're soul surfers or trendy surfers or whatever they might be, they all share the same beach and they all work together. So there's no fighting between them. They all work together and they all enjoy their day together, no matter what school of thought or what backgrounds they come from. And so as Muslims, we must also be the same, and we should be the same. We should all be together as one community, regardless of what madhab you belong to. Now, there are good things and bad things about different Muslims, and some Muslims have good qualities and some Muslims have bad qualities. But you know what? If we follow the Muslim, we're probably going to be let down. But if we follow Islam, it will never let us down. So we need to stop looking at people and saying, well, if he calls himself a Muslim, look how he behaves. Don't worry about him. You look at Islam and you follow Islam. I remember having a telephone call one night that I got from my neighbor. And he said to me, "Your dogs are barking and you call yourself a Muslim." Now, what has the dogs barking got to do with me being a Muslim? So I suppose if your dogs bark, it's a bad thing. But anyway, what happens is people sometimes, they look at personalities, they look at people, and they say, well, if that person behaves like that, then I don't want anything to do with Islam. We need to stop looking at people and personalities, and especially humans that are around today, and we need to start looking at Islam and start going back to the Quran and go back to basics. One of the things we need to do continuously is go back to basics and be careful that we are not straying away from the basic fundamentals of Islam. And so what we find in surfers as well, they have to practice all the time. If you take a year off from surfing and you try and get back on your surfboard, you will fail. You won't be able to catch a single wave. You'll probably land up under the water more times than you're on top of the water. And you'll probably break your surfboard. Now it's the same with Muslims. If we've been away from practicing Islam, and the only time we go and start practicing Islam is when it's Ramadan. Suddenly Ramadan, the mosque is full. Everybody's standing in the mosque, and the first 5 rows of the mosque are full. But by the second week of Ramadan, there's only 2 rows of the mosque are full. And by the 3rd week, it's getting smaller, and by the 4th week, suddenly there's 4 rows again full. But so we mustn't be like that. We must continue to be consistent the whole time. We need to practice, practice, practice. Make sure that we don't give up the commitment that we've made to Allah, the commitment that we've made to ourselves. And so when we stop practicing and we stop surfing every day and we stop doing our salah every day, what happens is we get out of practice. And it's easy to go further and further and further away. Now, one of the things that happens when you're surfing is that you get dumped a lot. Now, this is a term that surfers use, dumping. It's got nothing to do with your wife rejecting you or something like that. Dumping here means when the water comes over you and it pushes you under and it keeps you under and you can't get back up. In surfing terms, they call it dumping. It means you're held under the water. And so when somebody gets dumped, what does the surfer do? Does he get out of the water and say, "Oh, well, that's it. I've had it. I've given up. I'm not going to ever go back to surfing again"? No. He stands up and he says, "Well, I failed. I made a mistake. Things didn't work out the way I wanted them to work out." He gets back up and he tries again. As a Muslim, we need to do the same. When we fail, when things go wrong, when we do something that we shouldn't have done, when life gives us troubles, when things come along our ways as trials and tribulations and tests, we don't give up and turn our back on our religion. That is the time that we become purified. This is the time where we start to find out what we're really made of. What is the metal that we are made of? And so when trials and tribulations and tests come our way, we stand up triumphantly and we say, I can handle this. In Allah's strength, with Allah's guidance, I will make it through this, inshallah. And so we stand up and we do it again, and we go through it again. Just like the surfer will go back out through that water, he will paddle all the way out there knowing that he can do it because he has had practice. He has been persistent and consistent in what he's doing. Now there's another thing that we have is some people call themselves solo surfers. And what they do is they try to find a beach where nobody else is and they try to surf by themselves. Now these guys don't do very well because there's no one to measure themselves against. And solo surfers don't do very well. Solo surfers means you're by yourself and you go on your own. And these guys, what happens is they tend to develop styles of surfing that are quite strange. And they wander off on their own and they do their own thing and they don't grow. They never have anyone else to compare themselves against. And so as Muslims, we need to be careful that we don't become solo Muslims, that we want to do things on our own. We need to be answerable. We need to have somebody that we speak to that is going to guide us and show us the right path to walk on. Because it's very easy to walk into error. Because we can pick up the Quran and we can start reading in what is not there. We can start interpreting things in our own way. We can start finding excuses for what we are doing and say, well, I'll just use this verse here out of context, and I'll use this chapter out of context, and I'll use this ayat out of context, and I'll use this hadith out of context, and there's no one there to pull you back onto the right path. So what is important is that you surround yourself with good Muslims that know the Quran, that know the hadith, that know the sunnah properly, and they can help you expand your knowledge. There are many online courses that you can do if you like the internet, where you can get some good solid foundation. There are many correspondence courses that you can do. So you cannot be a solo surfer, you cannot be a solo Muslim. You need to be around other people that will help you to stay strong. Now another thing that happens for anyone who is a new Muslim and anyone's wanting to accept Islam, what will happen is you might see a Muslim and you say, I want to become a Muslim. This is the life for me. Just by looking at how they have this peace and the serenity, this is what I want. Look at the peace that they have. They're always smiling, they're always happy. This is what I want for my life. And so you go and you say, I want to become a Muslim. And you become a Muslim, and then 2 days later, it's too tough. Suddenly they tell you you've got to pray 5 times a day. And they tell you all the other things that you do, and you go, whoa, this is too much for me, and you run away. And you give up. Now that's a terrible thing to do. Now let's look at our surfers. Some people, they stand on the side of the beach and they watch the guy surfing and they go, wow, look how talented he is. He rides on top of the wave and he can do all these funny moves and he's like so cool. And you think, oh, if I could be like that. So you go and you buy yourself a surfboard. And you get into the wave and you fail. And you go, well, okay, that was it. I tried surfing. I tried my 6 hours of surfing and it didn't work for me. And you wasted all that money and all that time and all that effort. And you never go back to surfing. Now, you can't be like that. You have to know that it's going to be tough. It's going to demand that you have a lot of changes in your life. When you decide you want to go surfing, it's training day after day after day. It's practicing. First, you've got to get your balance. If you haven't got balance, it's no use getting in the water. If you've got no balance on land, you're not going to have balance in the water. So you have to practice on the land. You have to take it slowly. It's gradualism. Slowly but surely. Sometimes you might only be able to paddle on the water. You won't even be able to kneel or stand. Now it's like that as well as a Muslim. When you revert to Islam, when you embrace Islam, you're not automatically going to be able to pray 5 times a day. You're not going to be able to speak Arabic. You're not going to know where to find things in the Quran, but you need to take it slowly. You need to do stage by stage, gradualism. So it's not going to happen in 5 minutes. It's not going to happen in 3 minutes. It's not going to happen in 2 minutes. It's not going to happen in a week or a month. You take it slowly. So what happens is you start by praying, say, once a day. And as you're confident and you're regularly keeping that time, then you add the second one, and then the third one, and then the fourth one. Remember that the 5 times salah is the minimum. You must still pray the other times during the day. Whenever you're walking or sitting or lying in your bed, pray 5 times a day. Remember, those are the minimum. Pray more than that. But to do the required 5 times a day prayer, start with 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. Same when it comes to reading the Quran. Just read the first verses, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 verses, until you remember it and attain it and can practice on it. And then you can move further onto other verses. The same thing with whatever you do in Islam, take it gradualism. You know, Islam was developed stage by stage. And so the Quran was revealed stage by stage. We must grow stage by stage. Remember I said right in the beginning that we emulate the prophets. We use them as role models. And so the same is with your growth. We must emulate how the Quran was revealed to us in stages. So it wasn't automatically, not people when the Quran was given, they all didn't suddenly all have long beards, and they all didn't suddenly pray 5 times a day and all look the same. It was a gradual process, and so we must do it in exactly the same way. And sometimes it might take you, one person can learn everything in a year. And you go, wow, this guy looks like he's been a Muslim for 20 years already. He knows so much. Another guy, after 7 years, he's still on the basics. He hasn't developed as quickly as the other person. Don't expect everybody to be on the same page at the same time. I know a brother in Canada, he's been a Muslim for 5 years, and you would really think that this man has studied in Medina for the last 20 years. His Arabic is perfect. His understanding of the Quran is amazing. But there are other people who are slower, so we have to work at your pace and when you're ready and as Allah works with you. Now, sometimes when we look at our lives and when we look at surfers, there are so many things that we can see in comparison. You know, if you want to surf, the basic thing that you need to do if you want to be a surfer is that you need to know how to swim, keep your head above the water. And so as a Muslim, if you want to become a Muslim, it needs to be for the right reason. It must be because you want to swim. It must be because you really want to be a Muslim, not because you want to get married, not because you want to be cool now because everybody in all your friends are becoming Muslims, not because you think that somehow if you become a Muslim, you've joined a special fraternity or a special club. We're not a special club, and many of the people think that all Muslims think is exactly the same. We're like one brain that everyone just like robots. We all think the same. We have differences of opinion. We have different views. We have different ways of thinking about things. And so your motive, your reason for wanting to become a Muslim is extremely important. Just like the guy who wants to become a good surfer, he needs to learn to swim first. So your motive, your reason for becoming a surfer, and reason for becoming a Muslim must be the same. The next part is that your body needs to go through changes, and it needs to go through training. So if you're going to become a surfer, it's good to have somebody who is going to show you the ropes, be with you and guide you. Same when you revert to Islam, or maybe you've been a Muslim for 5 years now. Maybe you've been a Muslim your whole life and you haven't learned anything and you haven't had that exercise. You need to go to a personal trainer, someone who's going to guide you and show you. So you need to go to your local mosque or your local community, or if there's a propagation center in your area or an information center in your area, go join up, become a volunteer and learn to be trained up as a strong Muslim so that you can get exercise. So you can exercise your spiritual muscles, you can exercise your mental muscles, and maybe even your physical muscles. Some of us just sit in front of the television or sit in front of the computer, and we should actually get out there and do stuff. So my challenge for you today is to be motivated, become a surfer of the ocean of life. Every one of you can become a surfer. You don't need a surfboard, and you don't have to look cool and have the surfer lingo, because you're already cool. You already have all the lingo. You're a Muslim, and you should be proud of being a Muslim. So enjoy the surfing of life, enjoy being a Muslim, and inshallah we will meet again soon, and we will look at some more exciting topics and encouraging you to be a strong, dedicated Muslim. Assalamu alaikum.